So imagine losing all five senses at one time. I'm laying in a hospital bed. My hands are tied to the bed, because they didn't want me to pull my ventilator out. And I had no desire to do that, by the way. It was saving my life. I had my taste and smell gone. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that when you had COVID. And then I'm legally blind naturally, so without correction, I couldn't see who anyone was unless they were about 8 inches in front of my face. And then they had, their whole hospital stuff, yellow, yellow, yellow. And then the ventilator, for some reason, took 90% of my hearing away. And I think most of us here are old enough to remember the Charlie Brown school teacher. Wah, wah, wah. That's what everybody sounded like. So to be put in an induced coma over 30 days of that time, I was grateful. It was not a good place to be. My breath means so much more to me now than it ever has. And when you lose that, and you're a person that didn't suffer from anxiety, didn't suffer from trauma before of that kind, the nurses would ask my sisters, "Are you sure she wasn't on medication for anxiety?" And I thought about it later, and they said, because I was really bad. And I thought, let me take your breath away and let's see how you react. I mean, really. Well, so a little backstory before we get into the rest of the story. I have lots of rest of the story, so I hope you can follow me because it weaves out in and out a little bit. I got COVID the fall of 21, and I went to a conference. I always wonder, I didn't know until I was home for about 2 days that I had it. I always wonder how many people I infected on that airplane, because I got the Delta version, which is definitely the worst. And I just never thought I would get it. I was a really healthy person, didn't have any challenges health-wise. And not that I was above it, I just was healthy. And so I ended up hunkering down with my husband, brought it home to him. He was about 2 days behind me. He ended up getting blood clots and being on oxygen, but he didn't need to be hospitalized. And for about a week, we were living well, we were living in longer, but for a week, we hunkered down in an RV. We were waiting for our house to close in St. George, Utah. And they didn't know if I could sign because they didn't know if I would live. And so we ended up losing that situation and had to find another one later. But after a week, I woke up intuitively and said, we have to get to the hospital now. I feel like I have an elephant on my chest and I can't breathe. And I don't know how he somehow got us to the hospital, because we didn't want to give it to even, the ambulance drivers. We were so worried. People were leaving food on our steps because we were so scared how sick we were. And he dropped me off in the front and he said, by the time I parked and came back around to get you, they already had you on your way up to the ICU. So that's a miracle in itself that they got me up there that fast. So that started day one of 70 that I spent in the hospital. And about 4 days in, I'm not sure if I refused to get on a ventilator prior to that, but right away, I have two twin sisters. I have a big family, but these two twin sisters who also lived in the same town immediately came to my rescue. My husband, they wouldn't even let come in with me because he tested for COVID. So for 3.5 weeks, I didn't even get to see him at all. But I feel blessed because a lot of people died there with nobody. And by the time I was in there, we could have one person every 24 hours. So they would take shifts, and later on, they brought in some other family members once in a while because it was taking a long time and I wasn't getting better. So day 4, they put me on the ventilator and I was on that for a few days. Then they took me off and then they put me on again. And I know specifically the near death, exactly when it happened. And prior to that, I was having, for probably the first 30 days, I was having all kinds of out-of-body experiences. So most of you probably know about this more than me. I am no expert. I'm sharing my experience and what happened with me. I didn't realize that there was out-of-body experiences, there was spiritual transformational experiences, and there was near-death experiences. And I had all of them. And I didn't know, and it took me probably 2 years to really find out. And IAN's conference is where I went after 2 years, where I found out about all these things. And so I was having many out-of-body experiences. I have some really funny stories, and I could tell a difference when the drugs were affecting me and there were some dreams, and I could tell when they were real. And so one thing that happened a lot while I was there was my out-of-body experiences. I knew that I was sick. And so instead of leaving my body, I remembered watching it a lot while I was in my room and not really feeling connected, but knowing that if I leave without it, I might not get it back. So me and my bed traveled everywhere. And my sisters would tell me, they'd laugh, they'd say, no, you never left that room, you had your surgeries here, everything here. And I'm like, whatever, no, I know I did. Sometimes I would take my whole room. I would picture an ambulance hooking up to it. It was like one of those Connex's storage things. And it would take all of it with me. I'd go on my little journeys for the day, and then it would come back and it would unhook me, so I'd get my medical care. So I knew I was sick, and I knew I needed to keep my body close. So that happened a lot. Going into the near-death experience, did you know that they make you sign all kinds of papers when they're going to put you on a ventilator? Like me personally, made me sign like my life away. I'm in real estate, we call that signing under duress. It's like, how is that not signing under duress? Well, one of those papers were probably a DNR, do not resuscitate. And so when I'm leaving for my near-death experience, I'm leaving my room in my bed and I'm going down the hallway, and I sat up and I started shaking my finger at the receptionist and telling her, I rescind my DNR, I rescind my DNR. Why I picked her, I don't know. But again, I think I knew, okay, I'm on my way somewhere. This isn't looking good. And I thought about it later. If you have a DNR with COVID, nobody knew anything. They really didn't know anything about it. It's different if you got in a car wreck and I'm laying there and I'm brain dead. I wasn't. I chose to get on that ventilator. That was a whole other conversation that was a tough one. I mean, who wants to make that decision for somebody? I don't. We recorded it and I listened to it a few months ago, and my husband and my sister were having it with me, and it was long, it was about 20 minutes. I cried for myself because I thought, wow, how sad that I put them in that predicament, that we had to decide were we going to put me on a ventilator or not. And at that time, we just knew your chances are very slim if you get put on a ventilator. So at the end of the call, I remember hearing myself say, when I was listening to it later, all I know is that I can't breathe and I have to take my chances. And that was the decision. So as I'm going down this corridor on my way to, I didn't know where, but I knew it wasn't looking good. And I start seeing all these other hospital beds going down the corridor with me, which I believe were other people in the hospital dying. About half of them were dying on 2 different floors that we were on at the time. And then we end up at this, I call it a stadium. I don't know what else to call it, but the biggest stadium I've ever seen. And we all got the box, sky boxes, because we were in beds. So we got to have that for our show or wherever we were going. I didn't know. And then there was this pause, and then I end up out of my bed and I'm in this stadium, and there's thousands and thousands of people, but there's so much light in the whole thing, and just everywhere, so bright that I was surprised I could actually see people. And I remember looking, and nobody, there's thousands of people, but nobody was standing on the ground. They were all, I could see feet on everybody. Nobody was sitting in the stands. And I remember thinking, wow, it just felt so fun. I was like, and my motto is, if it's not fun, I'm not gonna do it. And so I'm just in this moment of not sure what's happening. And the next thing I know, all these conversations are going on, but nobody's talking. So some kind of telepathy, and it was so fast. And I mean, I talk fast anyway, but like I could track it. I mean, it was like, you would think a thought, you'd have an answer. And just, and it was like, wow, I could learn a lot. And anything you wanted to know or hear or understand or learn about, like it was just instant, you would have an answer. And then the next thing I know is all sides of me start this huge angelic sound. And I say it's an angelic choir, but the music was, it was angelic, but it just every direction I could hear it coming from. And I had never heard any of the songs, but I knew the words to every song. And I love to sing, so I just started singing along and having this great time. And then I would say a little time goes by, and then I'm having what I would call my life review. And all I'm seeing is good. I'm thinking, this is awesome. I love this feeling, and I don't remember questioning then, like, where's the bad? I had some bad, where is it? I don't remember that. I just remember just being in that moment and seeing that love and feeling that. And there's a bunch of matter, not just the light that I could see through. For some reason, I could see through the light, which was really bright, but there was swirls of matter, and they would all like form into hearts. And then I'd see them kind of just like float over to the left. And I just thought, wow, how beautiful. Like that was really, really neat to see. Then I was told two things. I had just pitched a company for a new company that I had an idea for. The day I found out I had COVID, I was very, very sick. And I did it anyway. I got on a Zoom with about 9 people, and I really wanted to partner with them because they had a billionaire backer. And that's really why I wanted to partner with them. And I was told to not partner with them, and that wasn't the highest and best thing to do for the company. It would take me longer, but don't partner. So I listened. And then the second thing I was told was to go start a nonprofit called Adventure Bucket Wish. And then I wasn't really given any more instructions than that. It was just, this is what you're supposed to do. And then I didn't get a choice to stay or go. Can you believe that? I just got sent back, and there I am in my bed, really in my bed now, and really in the hospital room. And my sister Jill happened to be there, and she could tell I was not happy. There was a lot of stuff going on. They were very in tune with me. And she said, she went and got the paper. It was a paper that had the alphabet on it. And that's how I would spell this. I was on a ventilator. I would spell words. And sometimes it'd take me 2 hours to spell a word. I'd be so exhausted because I just had no energy. And I started spelling K-I-D. And she's helping me. Oh, do you want me to tell your kids something? I'm like, no, she could tell that wasn't it. I spelled N-A-P. And she said, when you spelled kidnap, I was sick to my stomach. I like felt like I had to throw up. She had left and went and ran an errand because they said I was doing better. Of course I was doing better. I just got back from heaven. And I never could understand why do I feel kidnapped when I just came back from this great place? Well, just as soon as I communicated that to her, the doctor and the nurse came in, and they came to extubate me and take the tubes out. And I had spirits in the room and realized quickly no one could see them but me. And after the doctor and the nurse left, my sister was fumbling around and opening the closet, because I could talk now. They extubated me. So then she said, you had lots to say, and you couldn't understand me very well, but I could talk. So there was someone in there. She was showing me nobody's in there. And so then fast forward now, after that, because there's more that's part of the ND, that's the rest of the story. I love rest of the story. But I didn't dwell so much on the kidnap thing. I didn't understand it, but I was so sick for so long that it was just like, I just focused on getting better. So 2 years later, I incorporated the company. I started the nonprofit about 3-4 months into my journey after the hospital, really sick, still on oxygen. Then all the long COVID symptoms started coming in, and all the diagnoses and everything. I had 9 doctors. It was crazy. I left the hospital on 12 drugs. I went in there on none. I left with 1 more diagnosis than I walked in there with. So it was not fun times. And then it was the worst 2 years of my whole entire life. I take every bad day, every bad situation, and times it by 100, and I was living it. And I prayed so many of those days that I just would have died. I said, why did you save me to put me through this hell? And we were going through a lot of challenges. I felt like people would gravitate towards you because you almost died, and it was like I repelled them instead. And short of some great family members, and my husband was great, and some close friends, it was awful. And I felt more alone than ever. And so 2 years coming out of it, I found IANS. I went to the conference, found out about the out-of-body experiences, found out about the spiritual experiences, and realized that I had had, in the hospital, I had had a bunch of out-of-body, but I had had 2 NDEs, that one was really a spiritual experience. So I realized that I had all those figured out, but the near death, there was just some gaps. And so I really was wanting to find out those answers. So I called a friend of mine who does hypnosis. He had trained me quite a few years ago. And so I trusted him, I knew the process. And in hypnosis, you can come out of a hypnosis anytime you want to, like you are in control. A lot of people it scares. It didn't scare me because I knew how it worked. And I wanted it, I really wanted it. And I said, will you just do it on just my near-death experience? Because I just feel like there's some, I was writing my book and I thought, just out of integrity, I want to make sure I have all the pieces. So we did that session, and it was almost like having a whole other near-death experience. He brought me into this place in the beginning, what I call the in-between. And it was weird because it wasn't dark and it wasn't light. The dark was on the right and the light was on the left. One of the first things I saw was far in the distance up on the right side on a mountain was one eye on a mountain. And I just remember noticing it, and then I saw it again later. And I remember saying to myself, there's a reason you're seeing that, and you've seen it twice now. Then there was that matter swirling around, and now it was like colors that I really can't describe it. If I was to describe, I'd say cobalt blue, silver, gray, black, swirling around, but they would swirl into a heart and they would float over to the left. Everything's attracted to the light. And then he asked me, the hypnotist asked me, is there anybody here? Is there an entity? And we realized there was an entity there. And he said, try to hold the matter in front of you, because every time I tried to see if it was a person, it would like form a person and then it would disperse, and then form a person and disperse. So once he said, hold it there. And then in hypnosis, they have you become like the challenge you're working on. So that didn't even scare me. I was not afraid. I was not feeling evil. I just was wondering why I was there. And so he had the entity become me. And so I'm still present. And he says, when I count backwards from 3 to 1, you're going to tell me your name. And I'm there, I'm listening, and he says 3, 2, 1, and I blurt out Darby. And I kind of was like, oh, Darby, I've never even heard that name before. Huh. And then I heard it 3 times that next month. And so he talked to Darby, and I re-listened to that session just fairly recent. And it was interesting because my hypnotist was not very nice to him. He was protective over me. And he was telling him, he wants my light. That's what he wanted. He can't have the light. He can't go to the light. He just wants my light. There was no connection. And he said, but that's not your light. You're stealing her light. And they had this big banter back and forth. And then all of a sudden my eyes are closed and I'm still there. I could sense light, the brightest light coming, like the stadium light. And it's coming, and I could feel it on my face, and it was so light. And he said, it's coming together and I'm not going to be able to stop it. And so then it was, well, can you just let her have it then? That's not yours, let her have it. So after a few minutes, he just says, I can't do anything anymore. So he agreed to let me go. He let me go. And then I go, and in front of me is this tree. And it's kind of a tree that splits, and which I pictured like a fork in the road, and you could pick the right or you could pick the left. Of course, I'm going to pick the left. And I saw the tree, and remember, I had been through this horrible 2 years of time. I had just started coming out of that. And when I saw that tree, it was like I call it a God gift, because when I was branding Retreat R&R, the company that I was going to partner with that other company with, I said, in the branding, in the logo, it needs to have a tree. And no one questioned me. I didn't question it. I just knew it had to have a tree. And when it came back, and I'm gonna see if I have it here handy, I'll show you what it looked like. Oh, maybe not. When it came back, it had 11 leaves and 11 roots on it, which is 1, 1, 1, 1. And it just brought so much peace, because it was like, you created that without even remembering this part of your near-death experience, and you did it. So that was a gift. And then when I got over to the light, all the swirls are there again. All of them are forming hearts again. They're still going to the left, even though the hearts were the light, like they were the light. Now they're pink, rose, port-colored hearts. And the nonprofit I was told to go start when we had our first fundraiser, it was around the holidays, and we made these little gift bags that had an ornament that said hope. And in every bag, I knew it had to have a rose-colored pink heart. And I put it in every bag. And it was that same thing. Oh, another God gift. It was like, you did that, and you created the nonprofit, and you listened, and you didn't even remember that was also part of your near-death experience. So another thing he told me was, more will be revealed to you when the time is right. And for me, usually I have to know everything. I don't like surprises. If I know they're just gonna pop up, or someone just brings me something, that I like that. But if I know I'm getting something and somebody won't tell me what it is, I don't like that. I wanna know. And when he told me that, there was so much peace. And for that 2 years, really, that was what I prayed for, was peace. I felt like in my whole life, I had never felt that true peace. And more will be revealed. I was like, great, this is awesome. I love it, because now I'll get the rest of the story. I get more. And then he said, oh, the feeling, I love just taking a moment and being in that moment, because then I was shown more of the life review. And this time I remembered to say, where's the bad? I was like, where's the bad? And God said, this is what matters. That's why this is all I'm showing you. This is what matters. And then, and it was just seeing the acts of service I had done, and volunteer work, and love, and hugging, lots and lots of hugging, that I had given over my life. And I was just like, huh, okay, thank you. What do you say to that? And then he gave me a message. And this is a message I want you all to remember, because this would have changed everything about those 2 years I had before. Love them where they're at. And if I would have had that, I would have changed my perception of what I was going through. I would have changed the relationship that was the problems, everything about it would have shifted if I would have remembered just that, love them where they're at. And so then he unfortunately ended my hypnosis session when I was just getting to the stadium, and he brought me out of it. And I was like, dang, that was the best part. I didn't get to revisit the concert. But it had been like an hour and 40 minutes at this point. And I was so grateful that we got to see that. And it really gave me that hope that I needed for my person, because I really felt like I had suffered. I was just not in a good place. And after that, it kept me going. I know we've all had moments like that where someone says something to you, and it's just what you needed to hear in that moment. And you just keep going. So let me share real quick my spiritual transformational experience. That was the last experience I had in the hospital. And at that time, I had been intubated twice. This time I had the trachea in, so I was still on a ventilator. And my prayers were changing, because I was exhausted. I was kind of done with the fight. And I would pray, look, if you're not going to get me better, then get me out of here. I was not afraid to die. I had seen where I was going to go. I was not happy I actually got sent back, but that's another story. I had a cousin that was a little bit more like a sister that lived in Arizona, and she had an experience praying for my husband and I, and had all these beings surround her. And she one by one asked for their names, and she wrote a text. She says, I usually wouldn't do this kind of an experience in a text, but I know Holly's not doing very well right now, and I really want her to hear this. So they read it to me, and then I must have gotten put back in a coma at that point, or highly sedated, whatever, because I remember listening and thinking, oh, that was nice. And then I remember being really, really mad. I am a natural redhead. Okay, in my defense. I was like, really? Why did she get that and not me? That's not fair. You know, the civil rivalry. And I was like, I'm the one suffering here. Just let's figure this out. Get me better or get me out of here. Well, be careful what you say, be careful what you wish for, because right after that, Mama comes to visit. And my mom had passed away about 1.5 years before that. And she had been there several times while I was in the hospital, always on my right side. And she again came to my right side, and she just said, it is not your time to go. And you need to fight. And I remember the cringe because I didn't like the word fight. But you know, your mom's telling you to do something. And as soon as she said that, in front of me appeared, now I'm laying in my bed. Now this is all above my bed. And all the ancestors in white come. So I knew all of them had passed away. And most of them I recognized, but they all looked younger. My brother, he had died in a bad car wreck, and sister-in-law in a bad car wreck. My grandbaby had just passed away at 2 days old, about 6 months before. She was an adult. That was really special to see that, but I knew it was her. And they start chanting, fight, fight, fight. And then every time fight would get brought up, a whole new row of people would show up. Now, you know, my husband's there, and the kids, and siblings, and then friends. And then I started seeing, it wasn't like the stadium, thousands of people, but it was a different, because it was in front of me now. And it went back as far as I could see. Thousands were there too. And I just remember, wow, thinking, all these people are chanting for me to fight? Like that gave me a lot of will at that point. It was that defining moment when I knew I'd live. It was that time when I knew, okay, I got it. That's all I needed to know, was that I was going to live. I need to fight. Let's go. And it was a long journey back, but I knew that that would happen. And later I realized it took me a lot of times to put a lot of these pieces together. Later I realized that all those people, they were all the people on all those prayer lists that I was on. Thousands of people, because we were all on social media hanging on to anything at that time, right? During COVID, any social media posts, I mean, people were just expecting the next post to be that I had passed on. And it was amazing how good people are. I went back and read those posts. My sister sometimes would only put something on once a week. I think people thought it was more than it was, but 300 or 400 comments, and not just like, oh, prayer hands, thumbs up. It was like paragraphs, because people were living what I was living. They had someone that had died. They had almost died. They had suffered. The whole world was suffering at the same time. And just the heartfelt messages and people, it just made me know how we don't always need to think there's so much bad. We can find bad, but if we can love them where they're at and we can look for the good, it's always going to be there. And it just changed everything for me, that perception. So now I'm still remembering things. I love that. More will be revealed to you when the time is right. There's something I realized just this year. Darby, I can't believe it took me. Sometimes do you wonder why did it take me so long to figure this out? That's what I asked myself. Darby I always joked, okay, I was kidnapped. Why did I feel kidnapped? And I joked and thought, oh, I probably had a guide that was training, and they probably didn't know their job, and they took me and they weren't supposed to, and then they had to bring me back. That was kind of my theory. And then I realized one day it was actually Darby that took me. And when I got to the stadium where I was in the skybox, before I got into the stadium, that's where I was vulnerable. And we're all going to be vulnerable. And that's where he took my life. And he took me to the in-between. So I had to go there first And what I believe is I had to have a spiritual intervention to get back. And that was what that light was that came and took me. And when I realized that, I had never felt something so true to my core as when I realized that. It was just like, oh, that was a great find. You know, I'm glad I figured that out because I was really always wondering. And trying to think if there was anything else that's come. But another thing there was that I had saw in the hospital. I had a brother-in-law at the time, and his brother was in there a couple doors down, and he ended up dying while I was in there. And he had pulled out his ventilator a couple times, and I remember standing outside his door, just being sad because he wasn't a healthy person, and I just remember I knew he was going to die. And I remember that being another like out of body. That was a sad one. Most of my out of bodies were back in time. I went to Parowan, Utah. Anyone know where that is? So the Jesse Ann Smith house was built about 165-ish years ago. And I went there a lot. Still haven't quite figured out why I was there, but I revisited, and the creepy staircase, the round staircase, it goes to the basement with the dirt floor where there was really not some good things going on. I saw when I went back there, and to get that confirmation and see that, it kind of creeped me out a little bit. But to be able to go back and see and hear and still be getting like more to the rest of the story, I feel so grateful. I feel like I was blessed to have these. I know I don't want to waste a breath. I don't want to waste a day. I don't want to waste a moment. I want to remember always to love people where they're at, because that matters, and everybody matters. I don't care who you are, you matter. I told somebody the story on a business cruise this year, to love them where they're at. He was a therapist, and he kind of had a little hate in his heart for a lot of things, a lot of bad people. And he had seen a lot, and he had therapy with a lot of people that had been through a lot of trauma. And when I shared that story with him one night, we stayed up talking till the wee hours, and I shared the story, and he texted me the next day and said, "You changed my life." He said, "Those words shifted everything I think about those people." He said, "It's not going to be easy, but I'm going to remember those words." And that was like a year ago. And he just texted me a few weeks ago and said, I still remember those words you told me, and I'm remembering those every day. And I thought, you know, it's true. I mean, love conquers all, and we just have to let it be there and let us feel it. Okay, I think that I'm sure there's odds and ends that I didn't share, but that's pretty much my story. And so I will open it up for any questions that you have. Thank you.
So for those who are with us by Zoom, you can send us a text with a question that you might have to the chat box. For those who are here in the auditorium, raise your hand. The microphone needs to get to you so that you can be heard through the speakers, and it will get to the recording, and the people on Zoom will actually be able to hear you. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, yes. Oh, okay, good. Speak straight into it. Thanks, Molly, for being here and sharing.
Thank you.
Couple questions. Number one, the Darby part, I'm very confused about that. Why did Darby kidnap you or your light? And I'll answer that one, then I'll remember the other question.
Okay, that's okay. So I know I thought that too. I went back and listened just about a month ago to the hypnosis session again, that part, because I wondered what else I had missed. And Darby, at first I thought, oh, Darby's going to come back in the picture later. He's somehow connected. And he said, no, he didn't. He had no relation to me. He didn't know me. He just wanted my light because he couldn't have the light.
But you were Darby.
Well, no, in the hypnosis session, in order for the hypnotist to find out what's going on, they have them become you, so they can talk to them. Only in hypnosis. This isn't for real life. I mean,
I'm a little confused.
I know.
Sorry.
I wasn't scared to have that happen. I just want you to know I felt okay because I didn't feel the evil. I mean, I'm sure he wasn't the greatest guy or he should have stolen me, but it just, that's what he wanted. And so that's how we knew that, because he had him become me. And so he could say, "What's your name?" That's how we knew he was Darby. Does that make sense?
Okay.
A little bit more.
The second one, so it wasn't your time, you know why?
Why it
You
wasn't my
figured that
time.
out, yeah, why it wasn't your time to die, you had to come back, you figured that out yet?
I know those 2 years of awful was all the lessons I needed for like what my mission is, the philanthropy work I'm supposed to do. And so the companies and the nonprofit and things are part of that bigger plan. It's like I have the end result, but I have to figure out all the in-between stuff. So I think it's for that. And I think I needed those 2 years of lessons to figure out the system and how broken things were at the time with what I was dealing with, that they're just gonna help me in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When you were, when you were seeing, you said you were laying in bed and it opened up and everybody was yelling fight or saying fight. It started with people who had passed on, but then you mentioned your husband and your siblings. And so was it a blend of people currently living along with those who had passed on that you were looking at that were calling out fight?
Yeah, the ones in street clothes were living people, and the ones, yeah, did I forget to say that? Yeah, the street clothes came after everyone in the white. The white in the front that came first in front of me were all the ancestors and people that had passed on.
So did it seem like a hologram? I mean, blending people who are on this side with people on the other side, it seems to be a fascinating
I know.
conglomeration of vision.
It felt like a double mirror, like, except it was in front of me. If I was to look at a mirror, a double mirror, and just keep seeing it going, it felt like that, but this way. And I think I needed to see the support from both sides of the veil to give me the will to live. That's what it feels like. Okay.
You mentioned feeling like you were signing those papers under duress. And I think it's pretty well known now that there seems to be a lot of corruption during COVID-19. May I ask, did you notice anything through your experience recognizing any evil intent in the medical industry?
No, and maybe just because I was so sick. I mean, a little personal here, but there was a nurse that I definitely had some evil intent. In fact, I went back later, like even just a year ago, and was asking if the cameras in my room worked, because I wondered, and they said that's more for the medical team, doctors to be able to talk to you or do video or whatever. So they weren't normally on, because I felt there were, yeah, I had a nurse that I was not happy with, and it's kind of, it's a long, funny story. You'll have to hear it sometimes. Yeah, if you ever don't like a medical person working on you, you just have to say something, and they legally, I think it is legally, can't let them come back. I didn't know that, but I got rid of him, so.
Real quick, really crazy is that we were having severe COVID around the same time you were. I'm wondering if my mom's bed was one of those beds.
Oh.
She died in my hospital on November 10th.
So one of my friend's husbands, that was praying for me, that I hadn't met until about a year later, he said he was delivering medical supplies to the hospital during that time. And he had just met me, and he comes right up to me, and he gets big tears in his eyes. It was so sad. And he said, I can't tell you how many body bags we dropped off at that hospital. And he said, I remember praying over him one day, praying you wouldn't be one of them coming out in it. And I just, like, people are so good.
Holly, I might have missed this. In the beginning, you, they had opened it saying that you had a near-death experience thing that was actually affecting your life.
Say that last part again. Or just talk,
less.
kiss it.
Really close.
Yeah.
There we go. I might have missed this in your story, but I was wondering if maybe I had missed what part of your near-death experience that had preserved the medical procedure. Was there some procedure, or was it that you just knew that you needed to fight to survive? Was that really kind of what you were saying, or was there the kind of visions and near-death experience you had that helped as a premonition?
Yeah, I think at that point, since I already had the other trachea in my throat, that was how I was ventilated. That was a good sign, because I was getting better, but it was still so touch and go. Because I was like a month in one hospital and then like 5 weeks in another or something like that. And I think just knowing that, I think that just willed it. It was like, oh, okay, let's make a decision. Because, you know, we don't get to talk to the people that get to choose. If they choose to stay, we don't see them. We can't ask them right now. So I was just kind of like, I would have stayed. I always tease my kids that they're adults now and I can help them better from the other side anyway. They don't have to listen to me anymore, but you know, that's just my redhead in me.
Thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
I was curious, do you feel like you become more intuitive after that, your death experience? Like, do you feel like you can tell the future more or understand how people feel more, or without them saying anything, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I had a lot of those gifts before. They definitely have heightened. I will say for me, up until maybe the last 3 or 4 months, I've kind of suppressed them. And you can do that. You can have gifts and then not, right? I mean, we have talents, and if we don't use them, we might lose them. So yeah, I feel like I'm more open to it now. I've gotten a lot better though, because for about 1.5 years, I couldn't work. I was pretty sick. So I focused on getting well. And as I did that, I think things became more clear. Like the gift of knowing I had before. If people have that and they say, how did you know that? You just know that. Like if you have that gift, you know what I'm saying. And it's not that I was a know-it-all. If I knew something to be true for me, it was, and that's just how it was. And I feel like I see that a little bit more. I feel that a little more. I'm a little more sensitive to people and their emotions, and I think that's part of loving them where they're at for me, is listening to my own message and applying it every day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ask your question loud, straight into the microphone. The people online are having a hard time hearing.
Okay, I would like to know more about your charity. Can you tell us about your nonprofit and what you saw and what you created and what your vision is?
Yeah.
You haven't fully created it.
Okay, all right, I gotta tell you quick. All right, so the mission changed. That was another inspiration that I listened to. So I started it, I made the cause for long COVID. It was underserved, no one knew about it. Last time I checked, there was over 100 million people suffering from long COVID. And I think a lot of people that don't even realize it. And so we were helping that. I had a podcast, we had a couple fundraisers. Something didn't feel right in year 2. And so I took all the fundraisers off the calendar and I just kept doing the podcast, which only interviewed like medical professionals and people with long COVID, caretakers and holistic people. Those were my guests. I'm interviewing a girl. She's telling about her long COVID story, and all of a sudden I'm reliving mine. I couldn't breathe. I was like, wow, I don't know what it looked like on camera. I never went back and looked, but I was like, what is happening? And all of a sudden I get this huge download that says, this is not your mission anymore. This will be your last podcast. And I almost wanted to get up and dance because I was waiting for that answer. I knew something was off, but I didn't know what. So I immediately shut all that down. But then the remorse, the grief came like, okay, if God told me to start this nonprofit, why would he take it away? And so I called one of my board members who's very holistic, and she said, if I remember right, you didn't get the cause, you didn't get the mission, you got the name. And I said, you're right, yeah. And she says, so your year 3 in your nonprofit changed the mission. And then it was like, what am I gonna do? And she said, what'll light you up? I mean, and I realized this is a community that needs it, but everything was being suppressed. YouTube wouldn't show our podcast because we'd say COVID. And it was a fight. Honestly, it was a fight. And so I was in wellness space, and that's where I wanted to live. I was getting better. I was about 70% better at this time, which was good where I was. I'm about 90, 95 now. But it would bring those Facebook groups and things would bring me back to depression. And some people, when they're ill, they want to be victims. They want to stay sick. And it wasn't good for my mental health. So I think it was more for me. But what lit me up and what we changed the mission to, so thanks for asking, is women leading with purpose. Because purpose is what I came out of my whole experience with, a why, a real true why that I felt like I'd never had before. I've got the peace, I've got the mission, and I just need the right people to show up to make it happen. Thanks.
Closer.
Kiss it.
Thank you, Holly, for being here. Appreciate it. I study NDEs a lot and was grateful to find that they have this meeting and conference to be able to join together. I'm curious about Darby and why do you think in the afterlife, some are not able to get the light?
Yeah, that is such a good question. I wish I had all the answers, and you probably know way more than me. I don't know. Someone commented when I said, I don't have a doubt that he's not just gonna get the next person's light that he can. Because that's his purpose. He wants light, right? And that scared them. They said, are we all that vulnerable? I'm like, I don't know. I must have been. He took me. He didn't end up winning, but I don't know. I wish I knew more to that. I'm counting on more will be revealed to you when the time is right for me.
And I agree with that. I do have a question for you later.
Okay. Thanks.
Someone online asks if you would share more about your life's review.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was really into thinking that was all I did was good, but there was not all that. So I really didn't have to see the bad, and to know that that's what matters makes you want to do more good. Another thing I didn't mention about that is it was shared with me also that the pain, because I just come out of that 2 years and there was some real pain there. The pain that somebody caused or that you caused somebody, you will have to feel. And at that time, I was not a cruel person, and I didn't want anyone, let alone this particular person, to feel the pain that I had felt those 2 years. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. And so I was grateful just to be able to see, there were lots of acts of service. I've always been in the service industry and my companies. I've, been part of lots of international and national projects for philanthropy. And so it was like revisiting, had a fundraising company, and we helped kids raise money, lots of organizations. And it was just like revisiting those things that I did. There was happy moments with kids and experiences when I was being a good mom, when you felt like you're failing at everything. And I only had to see those moments when they learned those lessons, and I did good things. So it was amazing to feel that. Hope everybody gets to feel that.
Hi there, I've enjoyed your talk, so thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And so, frequently we read about people who are, or see people talk, who have a disruption on their marital relationship because of an NDE. And it causes relationships to change in divorce. How has it reacted with you and your husband and your children also, or friends?
Yeah, interesting you say that, and I agree, that happens a lot. Well, I want to thank, my in-laws are here tonight. Let me wave. They live in Sugar House, and they came to here, and they've never heard this, have you? They're probably like, wait, I was part of that. I don't remember any of this. I just really started talking about it probably the last 6 months. So I'm married to Scott, and everyone always says to me, I've had several marriages. I'm not bragging, I'm just stating facts. But we've been married almost 24 years, and everyone always says, how'd you get such a great guy? And I say, well, I think the odds were in my favor. I've been married several times. I mean, come on. So he's a great guy, hard at work, so he didn't get to come with me tonight because he had to work today. But it wasn't, I would say it brought us closer in my situation. Just like some people, I think, become more spiritual or religious when they have these experiences, they kind of go one way or another. But I feel like with our marriage, we're stronger. I mean, we've been through a lot. We 2 years after we got married, two of our kids, so we put 8 kids together in one house. And 2 of our kids married each other like 2 years after we got married. They're not married anymore. But, you know, we have this one grandchild from them that's like the kid we didn't have. And so we'd already gone through lots of teenagers and probably, I mean, I've had 11 startup companies. So we've been through lots of things. We usually have 3 or 4 at a time. And there's lots of things. And isn't he a great guy? It's my parents, so he's the best. Yeah, he's the best. So friends, it's interesting because some I feel like, yeah, there were some friend relationships that I don't know. I think I wanted to just live in that wellness space. I wanted to live in joy. I wanted to live in peace. And people that don't bring you that, you don't choose to be around anymore. And so maybe there weren't words spoken, you just like went your separate ways. And siblings, I really struggled. Those 2 years was a lot of family issues that I'd never had before. So there's a lot of trust issues I'm working through still with that because there were some heartbreaking things. And kids, they were stinkers, actually. They were some of my hardest heartaches during those 2 years, but things are so much better now. And, you know, I'm grateful for that. So yeah, I've had the ups and downs, but you know, in the end, it's me and my husband and we're tight. So we'll keep it.
Well, let's do one more.
Okay,
Well,
you're so cute.
you got time. What about the eye on the mountain?
Oh, you should see my office. I have like behind me when I'm on Zoom calls and stuff, and I'm wearing one. More will be revealed to you when the time is right. What I do know or feel is that it was protecting me. Even though it was on the right, it was far way up above, and that which was the dark side. I still feel like it was protecting me. It was letting me know from, I think, a higher space is I'm here, I'm watching you, I have you. It feels like I have your back. I just feel those words and I'm excited to find out more. So I don't know, to be continued. I'd say read my book, but it's not gonna, that answer won't be in there yet. The book's coming out 11/11. Can you imagine? The day I got out of the hospital. There's your 1111. I was gonna show you the tree logo, but I can't get this to pass. Oh, there we go. That's the nonprofit. I'll just show you these real quick. So the tree, that's the 11 leaves and 11 roots. Obviously, it's not the same tree I saw, but yeah, I just thought it was so special that it ended up. There's the message.
Yeah,
Oh, it's not going? Oh,
yeah,
never mind.
yeah, take it down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
If you want to see her message, you'll have to come up after and we will wrap up our Zoom portion of the meeting now. Thank you for joining us.